Welcome back, folks, to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. I know all you listeners out there aren't used to this, but I'm actually going to start introducing the guests. We've had complaints, people saying that Mike just breaks into it right away. That's me. Breaks into it right away, gets to what he wants to talk about, and nobody even knows who I'm talking about. So let's talk about him. His name is Mike Quijano. He currently serves as the Strategic Marketing Director for Cooper's Ephesus Sports Lighting business. Mike joined Ephesus when in 2014 it was growing from a startup to a leader in sports and entertainment lighting. Prior to joining Ephesus, Mike worked at Future Elections as a regional technical manager and holds a bachelor's in optics engineering from the University of Rochester and a master's in lighting from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. But, Greg, come on, man. We got to talk about LED-LLC.com, man. That's light efficient design. So original, man, with their great products.
Right, and one product we've talked about before, and I've mentioned before, is their Ballard Retrofits or their cob lighting. Now, again, they're the originators of this, in my opinion at least. They're the first ones I saw that came out with it several years ago. And now they have a specific Ballard retrofit that is expertly engineered to work efficiently in enclosed fixtures and damp environments while also protected against insects and dust. And I can't tell you how many times I've looked at cobs from other manufacturers that have insects all built into them and nasty looking in a Ballard. And then in addition to it, it's color changing with a switch, 3K, 4K, 5K. Keep them happy, reduce your stock, get a Ballard retrofit from Light Efficient Design.
Come on, brother. Get it right. Keep it tight. Go to led-llc.com. Of course, proud members of the most important association in the lighting industry right now, and that's the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. Get associated. What are you waiting for? Get educated. We got all sorts of stuff coming out, and we're even going to do a convention. That's right. So go to naild.org. But for right now, Mike Quijano, what's happening, Mike?
Hey guys, doing great. How are you?
You
We're
know,
doing good.
trying to sell light bulbs every day.
Hey,
Yeah,
same here. Aren't we all? That's the name of the game, right?
Sure is.
yeah. I noticed in your and Mike, we've talked about this before. You're saying there's no degrees in lighting. When heard your bio and I read it, it seems like you have a degree in lighting. Is that right?
Isn't it
No,
boring?
I
I
don't.
know.
I don't say that. I say there's no
Okay.
lighting engineers.
Oh, sorry.
Right? There's electrical engineers. There's mechanical engineers. There's no lighting engineers. That's not a designation that universities or colleges give out. So your stamp will say electrical if you're working on lighting.
Right. No, I know. Everyone seems to have a unique story about how they kind of backdoored their way into the lighting industry. Mine's
Mm-hmm.
probably the most straightforward, right? I did an optics degree, then I went to the lighting program at the Lighting Research Center at RPI and just kept pursuing lighting. And so now here I am on the podcast.
There you go. Now, Ephesus is part of Cooper, but I assume it started as its own company. It said a startup here. Is that correct?
Yeah, Ephesus, probably founded in 2011, just a small startup company thinking about, Ballard retrofit kits and street lighting kits, a really forward thinking technology company. And that finally landed on sports lighting as something to focus on because it was becoming clear in the market that the traditional sports lighting manufacturers were getting out and there was a kind of this big void and a huge need, particularly at the professional level, where the HID lamps and ballasts weren't being supported. So there was this pent up sort of need happening that we just happened to hit at the right time and had some big wins early that set the company on a trajectory to where we are today. So
Who started it?
we were
Sorry, the
the
company.
founders. Yeah, founders were a gentleman named Joe Casper. And Amy Casper, and then Mike Lorenz was also more on the commercial side, helped uh, get the business forward in the market and land some of those big projects early on. So there was just a small group of folks that started it, a core group of engineers that came from a Lockheed Martin, so that type of radar systems background that sort of translates nicely to light and thinking about throwing light long distances and communicating to the light, that sort of thing.
And then when did Cooper purchase it?
So we actually were acquired by Eaton in 2015, right? So we did University of Phoenix Stadium. The Arizona Cardinals were hosting the Super Bowl for the 2014-2015 NFL season. We did a handful of NHL venues as well, and it started to gain some attention. So Eaton acquired us in 2015, and then maybe you guys are familiar. Eaton spun out the lighting division.
Mhm.
We became Cooper Lighting, and then we're acquired by Signify. So now, Ephesus, small startup company in 2012, now part of the largest lighting manufacturer in the world. So it's a pretty remarkable story.
Are the founders still active with the company?
No, the founders have moved on to pursue other interests, although Mike Lorenz still supports the Ephesus business exclusively with his organization, NGU Sports Lighting. So he's representing us in a handful of regions and in the professional markets. So still very active, more on a sales and marketing company that he started up in the past few years and is doing very well.
Very good. Well, now let's get into sports lighting a little bit.
All right.
I was looking at, so I guess first of all, you mentioned it, but HID in sports lighting was a traditional way, and it's really to the point where, is it gone? Can you still get HID sports lighting?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think it's gone. Anyone
I don't even know if you can get
who's
the
looked.
ballasts, like to
Well, that's
replace the
just it. I mean,
ballasts.
I hear stories about, a major league stadium that converted to LED. Now the other stadiums who have HID are going to them saying, "Do you have any lamps? Do you have any ballast left? Can you help me out?" Because everyone's
Yeah.
out of the game, right? So it's a challenge for all those folks. So, any new project, I'm not aware of anything that's HID. Of course, we're exclusively LED at this point, but I think
Mhm.
it's pretty much gone.
Yeah, that's for new installations, though, Greg. I mean, I think the outdoor sports and outdoor facilities is the most under LED'd application. If that even makes sense, what I just said there,
Yeah.
but the least converted of all applications that are out there. I mean, you talk. I'm not talking about whatever you have the big stadiums. That's not what a nail distributor is going to go after anyway. You're talking about those municipal baseball parks,
Yep.
the towns, and controls are just such a wonderful, this is such a wonderful application for lighting controls as well.
Yeah, I agree. Sports lighting is sort of the final frontier of LED conversion, right? Just because the high output nature of it, kind of the economics are finally starting to make sense. We look at the conversion in the market, professional level, probably close to 50%. Down at the municipal level, probably 5%, right? So
Yeah.
it's still in its infancy, and there's a lot of conversion to do. And your point about controls, absolutely. Right now, we're doing things like embedded wireless control in the fixture. So if you're doing a retrofit, take that HID down, put up our LED fixture, apply the power to it that's already there. Now you have light and controls coming from the fixture back to your iPhone or however you want to control it, a tablet, a button station, and you can schedule, you can dim, you can trigger dynamic scenes and bring entertainment lighting. The high schools love it because now they can look like the pros, at a much more kind of affordable price point, all wirelessly. So from an install standpoint, very efficient. So yeah, I mean, it just for sports lighting, LED and controls makes a ton of sense.
Now, you said 50% professional level. It's only a matter of time, I assume, that they're all going to be LED, right?
Yeah, exactly. Probably in the next
Okay.
3-4 years. Yeah.
And since you guys started doing it, it sounded like 2014 is when you started getting into the professional level
Right.
facilities. Was there one year that had the highest sales total? Like everybody did it in 2018 or anything like that, or has it been consistent?
I'd say, there was sort of that ramp up 2014, 15, that when we got into 2017 and 2018, that's when, you had the leagues started pushing standards for LED, the NBA, the NHL, MLB all came out with a standard. The broadcasters were pushing for better lighting, the venues pushing for improved fan experience, right? You know how it is. Someone does something that's unbelievable. Now every other venue wants to do it, right? They're all chasing the trends. And so to see the venue down the street be able to trigger a light scene and do chase scenes and tie to music, it just started to catch on very quickly. So I'd say it reached its peak probably in 2018, but still pretty steady. So it's moving quickly at that level.
I look at this as, often we talk about this show on human centric lighting and circadian photobiology and all this sort of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And that translates into this idea of the non energy benefits of lighting. Okay. But
Yep.
to me, this is such a non energy benefits of lighting play. Like people may talk about, I'm going from 1500 watt metal halide down to 400 watt LED or whatever the numbers are, and it's
Yeah.
all energy savings. Who cares about the energy savings? Like it's
Right.
almost irrelevant. When you look at it, it's like, you go to a high school and you say, okay, so what is it that you actually want to do with this lighting system that you can't do now? Oh, well,
Yeah.
we'd like the coaches to be able to turn it on. We'd like community sports leaders to be able to turn them. We want the field used more, and it can't be used at night now because only 3 people have the key to the electrical room, and it's on a
Yeah.
timer, and
Exactly.
it turned off in the middle of the baseball game last week or whatever. It was in extra innings, and the lights went off.
Yep.
So to me, this is such a non-energy benefits play. How does Ephesus feel about that?
Yeah, exactly. The usage is low, right? Although we're starting to see a balance there. But I think that perspective that we had early on is what allowed us to be successful as a small startup, right? Because at the time, I remember like a 10,000 lumen low bay was everything that was converting to LED, right? So the thought of doing 150,000 lumen stadium light, everyone thought we were crazy, right? The price point made no sense, the energy payback made no sense, but the venues wanted to expand what they were doing. To your point, they wanted more entertainment capability. They wanted a better broadcast experience, a better experience for the fans, for the players. And so there's no financial calculator to tell you what the value of that is. You had to take the risk to go out and do that. And so that's what we did early, and we're successful. And now today, hey, the prices are coming down. You think about municipal high school markets. There's a functionality that they're defining and a payback that's starting to make better sense. And so now the rest of the market's starting to catch up.
Yeah, I think we need to avoid the payback conversation in this space because it's always going to be long. I don't care how much the costs
Yep.
have come down. The equipment
Yep.
costs, the installation costs, the commissioning costs, the fixtures are going to be much more expensive than a typical glare bomb LED that, it's really got to be done right. So I think we have to take the conversation away from payback. And
Mm-hmm.
because even the maintenance costs, I mean, I know in my municipality, they do a group relamp every 10 years or something like that on the outdoor lights. So, like, you can't
Yep.
really make those cases to people. I think we have to go in talking about the usage and the payback of giving the community better access. And I'm not talking about the stadiums here, I'm talking about the community level, community better access to their own facilities.
Yeah, 100% right. And that's what it is still. It's better access through the controls, better lit environments, right? And then if you want to do entertainment things like a lot of the high schools, you now you can do that too. Yeah, so payback is kind of secondary, kind of a nice to have. But to your point, doing it right also very important, right? I mean, you have to be selective with sports lighting. You're talking about more or less putting a computer at the top of a 100-foot pole, and to have an expectation that that's going to be there 10 years out from now, you want to make sure you're doing your homework, because we all see it. There's things available out in the market that folks should probably pause. But how many facility operators of a sports venue have ever purchased lighting? It's very few, right? So I mean, they're generally uneducated. So we find ourselves oftentimes educating folks on the factors that matter for sports lighting, and reliable systems and implementation. So yeah,
What
it's interesting.
One of the first things I would do in that situation, and this is a Canadian kind of issue, is that many
Mm-hmm.
of those sports lights in Canada will be 347 volt, okay,
Yep.
and in the States, many of them will be 480 volt, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? You have a big ass core and coil ballast like this, okay, with a huge copper coil inside of it that's running. If anybody's never seen a 1500 watt metal halide ballast, it's freaking enormous. Okay,
Yeah.
probably weighs 25 pounds. Okay, and that's getting whacked with 480 volt, no problem. That's getting whacked with 347 volt. That doesn't make a difference to it. It's just a huge copper coil and everything else. You got to drop that voltage down. If I was talking to a municipality and they came to me and they said, we want to do this, we're going to go 347 volt to save money, I would say that's absolutely crazy. You got a advanced piece of electronics up there. You can't be hitting that thing on and off with such high voltage. You're going to kill something in there is going to blow. And I think that I think that part of the sale on this end is to drop that voltage down. Very simple to do, very easy to do in the realm of LED, where you're saving 50 or 60% of the energy. Oftentimes it's simple as changing a circuit breaker, and having the electrical safety authority or the local electrical whatever come by and have a look at it. And then you lower that voltage down. You protect those electronics up there. The life will be way longer. I don't care what anybody says about that. For sure, it will last
Well, that's
longer.
just it. I think it's doing your homework. It's understanding what are the weakest links in the system, and who understands those the best, and how do you protect your investment, right? I mean, there's people think about the power supply is the weakest link in the system. Well, in a sports lighting system, it might be things that are in the light head 100 feet up, electronics, LEDs. Right. Speaking from our perspective, we do a lot of testing here at Cooper Lighting on those components themselves to understand things like solder joint failures and color shift, lumen depreciation over time. So we have almost 20 years of data to pull from to say, okay, when we put this up and we tell you 10 years and you're going to have the same light levels or similar, we have the data to stand behind that. So those are the types of factors that we think about.
How about heat? When you're in a Arizona baseball field, in the summer, are you concerned about the heat in the components in these fixtures?
Yeah, of course. Even though, of course, it's at nighttime and outdoors, heat, as we know, destroys LEDs.
Mm-hmm.
And so we work extensively to ensure that our LEDs are gonna survive in that environment. In fact, we rate our fixtures to operate 24/7 over 10 years, right? So, even though the operating hours are much lower, we go well above and beyond, sort of the application requirements. Because again, when those fixtures are up high, you don't want to have to touch them. We're trying to eliminate downtime, right? Not go and support our customers who have a fixture out here, a fixture out there, and now you have to come out on site. We never want to do that. So we lean heavily on our R&D test data and our thermal management to make sure that we can offer a system that eliminates downtime. That's the goal.
What is the rating of the fixtures? The temperature?
Yeah. So temperature. So we'll go up to 50 C ambient conditions in certain fixtures, right? And I think that's driven largely by indoor applications, right? You get up into a catwalk and the air conditioning system sits below the catwalk, and you can get pretty hot up there. But even in outdoor conditions, early evening hours when the sun's going down, to your point in Arizona or Florida, it's going to get pretty hot. So we found 40 C minimum, 50 C in some cases that we're rating for. And I see other products out there that have much less metal with higher ratings, and it just makes me pause and say, okay, what is this something that's going to last?
I'm having a hard time with your 50C claim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I'm not saying it's not true, but so I don't know if you've ever been on one of those catwalks that are high temperature. I have. I've
Sure,
been
yeah.
in a lift. The factory I think was 75 feet high, enormous presses, and I went up on the zoom boom to the top of that place. It was probably about 46C, okay,
Yeah.
maybe 42. That is hot as hell, and literally as hot as hell. And you're talking about deploying a fixture that is tuning itself, it's controlling itself, it has multiple pieces of electronics in there, and you've done this heat management without polychlorinated biphenyls in there. Like, are you putting PCBs in that fixture? Like, how the heck do you guys like 50C seems like a everybody that I've encountered that has 50C in their ratings is no longer in business in the lighting industry.
Yeah, gotcha. So our standard fixture is 40C, right, with all the electronics. We have some that are much more simplified, right? And I'm talking, we're using silicone optics, chip on board technology, and putting heat sinks on our drivers to pull that heat right out of the driver and get it into ambient. And because we're using such a robust heat sinking technology, we can keep all the rated temperatures well below their max, even in a 50 C ambient environment. So yeah, I mean, hey, we're doing it. We're not doing it in every case, but sometimes when it's required, we'll extend and say, yeah, hey, we can do it. We've done the testing.
Hmm.
In terms of the fixtures that you have, you guys have been doing it for whatever it is, 7 years or so. Have you been doing advancements in it every year, or does it kind of stay steady? Like, we've got a really good product here and we might tweak a little, but it's about where it's at.
Well, it's interesting because when you think about the professional level, they want all the bells and whistles, and they were adopting early. But then you work down to the municipal level, and they don't. Do they need color tuning and integral RGB inside the fixture? Not really. They want something that's a little bit more simplistic. Maybe that's not a great word, but less sophisticated. And so as the marketplace evolves, we're trying to develop solutions that respond to the customer's needs and challenges. And so that's not always going to be, the most, highly integrated fixture with all the bells and whistles, right? So yeah, I mean, we come out with fixtures that are just white light with on-off control or just wireless control, right? Knowing that no one's ever going to run a DMX connected controls front end. And so, we're always going to develop a solution that we think the customers are asking for, and maybe even lead them to where they want to go a little bit too.
And how many players or competitors do you feel that are in the industry that you're in? I know there's you, and I can think of one. We don't have to name any names, but the one I'm thinking of actually, to give it away, does installs too. They're kind of selling it direct in a way, and then they have their install team actually going and do it. How many do you guys consider out there?
It's a handful, right? So, it's a small competitive industry. Some of the historical players got out, the big names that I think we're all familiar with. And so you're seeing some of the smaller players get in, but you're right. Sports lighting, we can talk about the fixtures till we're blue in the face. It is as much a turnkey installation system delivery business as it is a fixture business, right? But I think where we separate is we're one of the only ones who actually make our own fixture, and we also provide the turnkey installation, right? So we have that backbone of fixture testing R&D within Cooper Signify that dates back, since the start of LED outdoor lighting. And so we can apply that to our fixtures and then leverage the resources that Cooper Signify have to offer services to deliver poles, cross arms, controls on a truck to the site with our own project management team that makes sure the customer is happy. So it's a great point, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's definitely one of the differentiators in the sports lighting industry.
Yeah, so we've seen the collapse of the distribution channel in the last 10 years in the lighting business. This podcast is the official podcast of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. When you're talking about that, what market are you referring to? Are you referring to stadiums, large stadiums, or are you referring to everything down to the municipalities?
Yeah, I'm talking about the entirety of the market,
So
right?
we
I mean,
don't like
there's
you.
an
We don't like. Get off the show. Get this guy out of here. No.
well, there's an expectation, right, that's been set over the past couple of decades, right, that sports lighting kind of goes to market a little bit differently. Now that's not, but every customer has a preference, right? And some want to work through their distribution, some want to work directly. And so, there's an openness to do whatever is in the customer's best interest and our partners' best interest. So, we can kind of do it any way that's required.
And I've done one project total in sports lighting in the 15 years I've been at it. It was for a local football field because I was on the
Yeah.
football board, and they needed lighting done, and I had never done it before, and what a pain in the ass that was. For me, like not having the background, and this was in 2015, so right when you guys were getting going. But I remember we compared LED to HID, and at that point they chose HID because it was a third of
Yep.
the price.
Yep.
But it was a process that, it's not like anything we do normally, Mike. I don't know if you've sold any, but like selling the poles, doing the layouts, going through the city process, everything. And I just ran this stuff through at cost because it was for my kids and the kids playing football and all that stuff. And I wasted so much time on it that it was like not worth it almost, or
I
it
did I
wasn't
did
worth it.
some private tennis courts and private facilities. I find the municipal situation to be more conducive to the spec and bid rather than the design build services of a distributor.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
if you're like a lighting distributor contractor like Greg and I, we're going to go out and tell you what's up. This is what you're going to do. This is how it's going to work. And then they might get other quotes, right? But the city system is going to rely on those engineers and the specifiers and a process. And
Yep.
so I know you enjoyed your conflict of interest time while you were on the football board choosing the lighting for yourself. Um,
I made nothing off of it. I got a
yeah,
bid from the other one too, so I
I've
went
known
through the
Greg.
whole
I've known
process.
Greg Eric for a long time. I don't think he made nothing off of it. But anyway,
Zero.
but what I'm saying though is that for distributors listening to this, there are people that are really they're distributors that are at the other end where they're more specifying and doing layouts and designs and all that sort of stuff. And we can do that here at my company as well. But for me, I would prefer either very small municipalities where the mayor is a volunteer, or private facilities and outdoor tennis courts, baseball field, whatever, and then we would approach them. The municipalities, I agree with you. It's a process that is more suitable to the agents and engineers than it is to distributors. That would be my sort of take on that. But hey, distributors, go do whatever you want. I'm not the boss of you.
What do you say, Mike? From what your experience is, are you, Mike Q? Are you, you're seeing a lot more of it run directly through you guys, I assume.
Yeah. Well, it depends. If you're talking about new systems, then yeah,
Hmm.
what Mike is saying, yes, specify engineers, kind of traditional lighting process. Retrofit, much less defined, right? So those are, hey, we'll go talk to the high school football coach and say, hey, those lights, have you seen what's possible? And maybe you want to think about LED and start a conversation there, right? Because retrofit sports lighting is a whole new market. It's never been done before. It was just I bought an HID system and I changed out light bulbs for 25 years, and that's what it was. Now you're taking those down, you're putting up LED. It's a whole new world.
So when you say
So
retrofit, you still mean replace the fixture, though. Not
yeah, I'm
talking
sorry.
about
Yeah,
a
I mean
kit that goes
take the
inside.
fixture
Yeah.
down, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Take a HID fixture down, put an LED fixture up, or some maybe you take down the whole cross arm and put up a new cross arm of LED, but more or less keep the pole and figure out
How do you
what to
deal
do
with
with
the
the rest of it.
pole ratings? That's always an issue for me. Where if somebody wants to put a larger bullhorn on the top of the pole, so we do a lot of poles actually.
Yep.
But when we retrofitting, you're taking that HID head off, right, which is very heavy. And
Hmm.
we often run into this situation where it's like, well, they want to put a triple bullhorn on this. Um,
Yeah.
how do we rate that pole? We call the manufacturer. They always say no, you can't put anything else on our pole. You know what I mean? That's always the
Oh,
answer
of
is
course.
always no, right? But then
Yep.
I think to myself like that 1,000 watt HID fixture weighs 65 pounds or whatever it weighs, 40 pounds or something like that. These three
Yep.
LEDs they weigh 15 pounds collectively. Why can't I
Yep.
pop a bullhorn on there? Oh, there's wind ratings and how do you deal with that when you're retrofitting?
Yeah. A lot of times we bring in an engineer, whether it's on our staff or third party, and we have them do an evaluation of the existing infrastructure, and we work with the customer to do that to ensure that what we're putting on is, going to be structurally sound for the foreseeable future. Now we still have to be smart in the design of our fixture, right? I mean, if it's a much larger EPA, a much higher weight, then we'll have a greater challenge in getting onto existing infrastructure because you want to be lower EPA, lower weight, and that's what's going to allow you to find your way onto more existing poles and cross arms that are out there.
Yeah, this whole sales process, there's just so much involved in it that do you guys, and I know you being the manufacturer might be a little different than someone like us, but Do you require some sort of commitment before you take any time on this? Because to me, it would be like there's so many variables that get involved that before I'm going to spend any more time, I want something. Is that where you guys are at too, or what do you do?
I mean, to some degree, but I think what we're trying to do in our process is to educate the customer, be sort of that trusted advisor to their needs and requirements, and develop that relationship. Because it's hard to go in and say, hey, I need some sort of commitment, right? I mean, there's
Mhm.
so many folks who have a need. It's kind of up to us to be smart about kind of who's getting close. But you're right. I mean, it's a heavy lift, especially in the professional world, right? Where you have to do a design for a full stadium, fixtures, controls. At the high school municipal level, I mean, you can open up the IES handbook and see what the lighting requirements are and the pole setbacks. So we kind of are able to get a pretty good estimate on what's going to be involved in a project, and can pretty quickly give folks a sense of what that is.
So, Greg, you asked him if he charges for assessments, right?
Yeah, basically some sort of commitment.
Okay, so I'm going to make a statement here. If you don't charge for assessments, you have a massive gross profit margin on your projects. There's no other way to determine it. Like if you, that
Or
means that
very
every
very quick
every
at assessing.
yeah, maybe. I don't know because for for me, listen, the lighting business is very profitable. Actually, it's a good business to be in. As you know, people back into it, like you said at the beginning of the podcast, and they're like, "Holy shit, you can make a lot of money in lighting." I didn't know that. I mean, lighting is way higher margin than electrical. Everybody knows that, right? Like electrical distributors on their pipe and wire and all, they're very low margin stuff. They're selling breakers and all that sort of stuff. Lighting guys, they have double the gross profit margin usually. So I would
Mhm.
say that whenever you hear that we give away free assessments, or we fly to Cincinnati to look at your lighting system for free, it means and this is to distributors. It means that this market is very popular. If you're listening, this is a very profitable niche of the market. You may want to think about getting into it. And so finding a place, whether that's the private people, Greg, the private fields, the
Mhm.
smaller municipalities that you can have access to, you're not going to fight Ephesus on for the Rogers Center in Toronto. You know what I mean? Like that, we're not going to win that job. Atlas Lighting is not going to win that job. But there are literally thousands of, I don't even know if thousands, tens of thousands of opportunities out there to really add value to municipalities, to these sports fields, private businesses. It's such a wonderful market, Mike.
Yeah, and it's a fun market to be in, right? You think about sports lighting, there's probably nothing more exciting, and the folks you get to engage with, and the experience you get to deliver to the players. Yeah, I mean, it's a great slice of the lighting industry for many reasons.
Yeah, Mike didn't like my dog whistle there to the distributors. He didn't like my dog whistle.
That works.
No, no worries, no worries.
And I know that when designing these, and then again from the experience I had, the optics of the fixtures very important. Obviously, aiming it in the right way. Do your fixtures have the capability to change the optics remotely, or do you have to specify and set the optic now, and that fixture is always going to be at whatever optic pattern that you choose?
So yeah, for our indoor arena fixture, it's called Loom Adapt. I think it's the only purpose-built fixture for indoor arenas in the entire world. I know that's probably a bold statement, but I think most others take their outdoor fixture and they just try to put it indoor. But
Sure.
in indoor arenas, your needs are much more dynamic, right? Like we just did Scotiabank in Toronto, and of course they have hockey one day, basketball the next day, the circus comes to town the next day, a concert the next day. And so they need a lighting system that can adapt to those needs, right? Hence the Loom Adapt. And within that fixture, we can adjust the beam angle through the control system, right? So you can go from a very narrow beam to a very wide beam just through the DMX front end interface. And so that kind of allows you to reduce fixture count to accommodate NBA, NHL, but then to also adjust your lighting system to meet other needs. And those needs might be known today. Certainly they're unknown when you look 5 years out, 10 years out. And so, indoor arenas are really taking a liking to that fixture and system for those reasons.
How Kelvin temperature? I'm just curious offhand as you're talking about that. Is there one set Kelvin temp you do on these standard? Is 5K the standard, or what do you go with?
So indoor, the Loom Adapt will go from 3,000 to 6,500. So you can adjust
Mhm.
the color temperature, you can adjust the beam angle, and then it has RGB integral to the fixture as well. So, you can create fan experience and do all that. So indoor, hockey wants 5,600, basketball wants 4,000, 4,500. Outdoor, we're still seeing, I think I'd say 5,600 is still most popular for sports
Watch it.
lighting. I know that. Uh-oh, what'd I do?
Okay, so this is my next point. You got into
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to
Yeah,
before we go on, I was going to jump in on Scotiabank Place. I've been there many times. So they used to have
yeah,
these fixtures. They'd have like so many fixtures in the ceiling, and they had these shields that were like mechanical
yeah,
shields that they
yes.
would flip over the fixture. The fixtures wouldn't go off because they're HID. They have to deionize and restart and all. So they had these shields that would flip over and cover the fixture. So I can imagine, in one sense, you can really remove a lot of fixtures from that system if the optics is dynamically controlled. It's wonderful.
Yep.
But um, outdoor stadiums lighting and is a massive source of sky glow. And has Ephesus looked at implementing dark sky certification into some of these systems because it is available and it can be done.
Mhm.
Maybe it's a higher cost or something. Have you guys implemented that at all? So you'd have to go lower Kelvin temperature, which isn't a problem because you can have the same color rendering index. People might say, no, I want it to be 5,000 Kelvin. But really, if you're at a lower Kelvin temperature, as long as that CRI is still very high, I know there's TM whatever now, they call it something different, but
Yep.
you can still accomplish the spectrums that you need. I don't even know what the terms are. I'm the host of the show, but whatever. I sell light bulbs. I sell lots of them. So screw off, everybody. All you LCs out there. I don't care if you know all these stupid terms. I'm not that interested. But you can actually accomplish that with lower Kelvin temperatures and with a reduction in the sky glow effect of these stadiums. Are you guys into that at all?
We're into it. I'd say we're more into it at the recreational, municipal, high school level. I mean, the stadiums, they're like rock concerts. I mean, how are you going to control what's coming out of these stadiums? Very difficult to do. Although, we're happy to accommodate those needs of dark sky in a stadium. But I'd say more so at the municipal level where, you have houses that are neighboring nearby. I mean, that's where it really becomes more of a focal point, right? So, yeah, that's a
Or
requirement.
wildlife, like some of these stadiums are
Yep,
on the coast, and there's wildlife there that can be very damaged by high color temperature, light leaking. I
hmm
like to call it light leakage, light trespass. I like leakage, which is leaking all
yep,
over the beach and this sort of
yep.
thing. So you guys do take that into account. That's fantastic.
We do, yeah. Like in our stadium fixture, we use a reflector optic, and then we actually have a patent around putting a little internal louver inside of every reflector cavity, so that prevents the light that would otherwise spill outside of that reflector. It hits that louver, directs it downward, and keeps the light in the stadium and and off those wildlife areas or neighboring communities, what have you. So
Now,
we
how
think
about?
about that, and then the
Oh,
municipal level, we have all sorts of visor technology. Actually, we're coming out with some new stuff now that's really going to provide some sharp cutoff and meet all the requirements, whether it's dark sky or just a local municipal ordinance.
and just to touch on user control a little bit, I'm going to go back to my example of my football field. So we have a key and a lockbox on one shed, and you have to have the code to get that key. And when you get that key, then you can go to the other shed and you can open the door, and then you can unlock it. Then you can go to the panel and you can hit the breaker. There's about 3 people in our community who know how to do it. I'm me being one of them. How can you solve that now? How do you give multi users control of this of their fields so that we don't have to go through that process?
Well, we give you a mobile app and a username and
Okay,
password. So if you have
easy.
those things, you can go in and turn the lights on and off. But yeah, I mean
It's that
that's
easy.
how it was done, right? I mean it's crazy, and you think about trying to operate a venue or be efficient in any way. I mean, I love the stories about how someone forgot to turn the lights off, and the operator has to
Mhm.
wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning, go drive to the field. Then he forgot the key, has to go back home, and comes back, and then okay, now we can turn the lights off. Amazing.
Yep. And maintenance from the new product or the LED, how do you guys handle that, or what are you saying? Because right now you have some applications that have been in place for 7 years. Is your warranty
Mhm.
5 years?
We do 10. We do 10 years.
Yeah.
We do 10 years
Okay.
parts. We'll do a 10 years labor. And so, we're standing behind it. Our latest technology, we actually implemented the dual power supplies, right? So just trying to think more about eliminating downtime, reducing maintenance. Two power supplies, one goes down, the other one takes over, operates
Mm.
the entirety of the fixture. We know that because we'll get feedback from the fixture to tell us, but you're generally going to maintain your foot candles to an acceptable level, right? And you won't have that black eye effect of, geez, I have a fixture out. And so we thought that was sort of a creative way to reduce downtime and avoid maintenance costs.
So what do you tell
But
people now? Like when are they going to have to replace their lighting? Or what's that process going to look like?
for LED, well, you have 10 years, although we know we're going to last a bit longer than that. But my sense is LED sports lighting is still evolving. We look at our roadmap in 5, 6 years, we're thinking, man, all these fields we did, they're going to want to come back to us and say, oh yeah, I think I want that now, right? Because now I'm using my field for different purposes. I want to incorporate entertainment capability. I have now I'm using broadcast camera for streaming. And so, what I did just changing out these lamps 5 years ago no longer is appropriate for what I'm trying to do today. So I think, I see these long-term warranties out there, and I just think there's no way these people are going to be happy in, 15, 20, 25 years with what they purchased, way back when. So I think we're still evolving very much on the LED sports lighting world.
And it will likely be a fixture replacement, then, is what you're saying. They're not going to be
Yeah,
replacing power supplies. Okay.
yeah, I would think so.
And then one other point too, when you design the system, and I think we touched on a little bit, but are you overlighting it to begin with, knowing that it's going to lose the light, or how are you handling that?
We put it in a factor, usually 5 or 10% will overlight it. It was interesting when LED first came to market, everyone was still using a light loss factor of 0.7, which, to think you're going to lose 30% of LED light based on the usage and over time. I mean, that just would have to be a very poorly designed fixture, I think, right? So we see the market adopting more of a 0.9, 0.95 light loss factor when it comes to LED.
Sure. And what's the most
Yeah.
recent project you guys completed that we would know?
Yeah, well, Scotiabank was pretty recent. I'd say we did that just towards the end of last year in terms of, major visibility projects, outside of everything we're doing day to day at high schools and in these recreational facilities. That's probably our most visible. Actually, we just did the NFL stadium in Carolina there as well. So, we've got some nice wins we'll brag about, and we can go check light levels over time too. If you want to do that.
There you go.
Mike Quijano, been a pleasure, brother.
All right. Hey, we have to do it again. This was great.
Sure.
Yeah.
Next time you have to join Nailed, or you're not allowed.
I'm in. I'm in. Let's do it.
Done.
All right. Folks, you got to talk about led-llc.com. Greg, that's light efficient design, brother.
That's right. Ballard Retrofits, 3 color temps in one, and different lumen options they can choose from. Medium mogul base, the dust protection, insect protection we talked about, and it's got good surge protection, which you also need, and multi mounting, sideways, horizontal, up, down, whatever you need. We got it.
Everybody forgets the Ballard, sucker. Everybody. Every time I go to a new job, we did all our lights. Yeah, but they didn't do the Ballards. That's right. You got to do it right with light efficient design. That's led-llc.com. Check them out. Game changers in this place. They've come up with so much great stuff, Greg. They're always hot, coming out with something new that distributors can have in their arsenal, the arrow in the quiver. And of course, Greg, all our friends and colleagues at the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. Get educated, get associated. Come on, folks. What are you waiting for? We got a convention coming up sometime in November. They won't let Michael Colligan cross the border, so I probably won't be there. Maybe I'll be there. I don't know. We're going to see. But you should be there if you're in the U.S. Get down there, man. It's going to be a hell of a time. Greg Eric's going to be running the whole show. He's going to be working his butt off, planning that convention out and everything for you folks down there. And, of course, Mike Quijano, Ephesus Sports Lighting. Folks, it's been a pleasure, Mike. And to all of you out there, let's go. Let's do this thing.